Mataji, it is live now.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Dandasalam to all of you. And today, my name is Nayansundari Devidasi, and I welcome you all to today's Sunday, 21st February, Srimad Bhagavatam. Or actually, these days we are doing Chaitanya Charitamrita reading. So we'll have the Chaitanya Charitamrita class today instead. So before we begin, we'll just say a few prayers. My volume is low. Is it better now?
Yes, Mataji, much better. Thank you.
Okay. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Gopi Jan Vallabh, Radha Gopi Jan Vallabh, Radha Gopi Jan Vallabh, Shri Radhe Jaya, Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hare, Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hare, Jaya Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango Gaura Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada, Nitai Gaura Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Nitai Gaura Hare Bo. Hare Krishna, we welcome you all to Chaitanya Charitamrita reading. And before I begin, I would like to admit that I have no qualifications to speak on such transcendental literature as Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it is all about staunch devotion to Lord Krishna, and also about the dealings between devotee community, and I'm very poor at that. So beg your blessings so that I can speak something which is pleasing to the heart of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. I hope I'm audible now, Prabhuji.
Mataji, the volume is still low, Mataji. Actually, when you sang, it was okay, but again, it seems little low.
Even like this.
When you keep the microphone close, it's much better.
Okay, Prabhuji, I'll try to hold it then.
Um, Mataji, maybe if you can remove the headphone, probably it may work easier also since your computer is close by.
Okay.
Whatever works for you, Mataji, but we can hear. It's okay.
Is it okay, Prabhuji, now?
Sorry, Mataji, it is still low.
I'll try to be.
Devotees, is it the same with everyone or is it only with me? Sometimes it could be my computer. I request anyone else. Is it the volume low or you're okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, the volume is low actually.
Okay.
Prabhuji, should I get another headphone quickly?
Mataji, I think we can hear Mataji. Don't worry, Mataji. Please proceed.
Sorry about that. So yesterday we are reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela. And before we begin to discuss about Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was given to speak, I was given the few shlokas from chapter 5 of Adi Leela. But I thought before we speak, we should know about the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm sure many of you might be knowing already, but for my own purification, for my own developing deeper respect for the author, I would just try to mention a few words here. So the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita is Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and it is mentioned that Srila Prabhupada especially says that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the composition of someone who has reached the status of a Paramhamsa. That is the level of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami as per Srila Prabhupada. And he's saying that that person who is Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is completely beyond the four ashramas. And he's mentioning that his spiritual identity in Vraja Leela is Ratna Rekha Manjari or Kasturi Manjari. So let us discuss where is he placed in the disciplic succession. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was the Shiksha disciple of Rupa Goswami. And it is mentioned many places that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami took lessons, or Raghunath Das Goswami basically memorized the pastimes, or notes of Sarup Damodar Goswami that he had made during the Chaitanya Leela. So Sarup Damodar Goswami had made the notes, and Raghunath Das Goswami had memorized these notes. And that's how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami got to hear about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And then when we go down in line, he accepted Narottam Das Thakur as his disciple, who in turn had Vishwanath Chakravarti as his disciple. Vishwanath Chakravarti's disciple was Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and we are now back to our, we are in parampara that we see on our altars every day. Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's disciple was Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, the disciple was Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and from whom Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Goswami Maharaj took initiation. And we all know that he's the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. So this is the line of disciplic succession. That's where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is placed. And so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, if we closely observe Chaitanya Charitamrita, his every chapter beginning and ending, he's always talking about the mercy, 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 mercy. He says, without the mercy of Vishnu and the Vaishnavas, it is impossible to describe their glories. And then he says, he says that he mentions that Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami wrote an outline in Sanskrit of Mahaprabhu's later activities. And he had Raghunath Das memorize these verses and told him to preach them throughout the world. And these verses are not written anywhere else. However, so the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a gist of Swarup Damodar's Karicha Dese, the notes of Swarup Damodar Prabhu. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was a devotee of Krishna who lived in Katwa, a small town in the district of Burdwan, Bengal, it's mentioned. And such humility, I was just reading how Krishnadas Kaviraj, so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote Shri Chaitanya Charitamrit, and there was another spiritual book, literature written by Vrindavan Das Thakur. But I mean, in material sense, if we are working on the same project, it is very easy to develop envy. I mean, it happens to me for sure that that person should not do better than me. But here we see complete opposite. He says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are by nature wonderful and sweet. But when described by Vrindavan Das Thakur, they become a shower of nectar. And he says to describe them again would only be a repetition, but it would not only be a repetition, but a display of arrogance, for I do not possess these powers. So he says, I shall thus only present a synopsis of those events already described fully by Vrindavan Das in his Chaitanya Mangalam. And then he says, I shall do my best to fully describe in this book only those incidents mentioned in his outline which he did not develop. So just the gist of that which was mentioned, he elaborately discusses them in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then he says, I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Vrindavan Das Thakur, praying that I'll not offend his lotus feet by my action. How careful he is, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is very careful in not knowingly, unknowingly offending Vaishnavas. Very important quality with humility. And then, so it's mentioned that Vrindavan Das is the authorized biographer of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he has described the Lord's pastimes in such a way as to make them sweeter and sweeter. And then he says, I shall try as far as possible to fill in the descriptions he left out. Vrindavan Das Thakur left out due to his fear of his books becoming too voluminous. So Vrindavan Das Thakur had already written Chaitanya Mangal, but because the book was getting bigger and bigger, so he cut short few of the pastimes. And that's what he's mentioning that I tried to elaborate in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So when we are talking about chapter 5 starts with glorifying Lord Nityananda. So the chapter title is Glories of Lord Nityananda Balram. Now when Nityananda Trayodasi is approaching, this is a perfect chapter to begin studying Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so this chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami starts with the glorifying Nityananda Prabhu. And he says a few verses, many verses, I'll just try to say a few. He says, Nityananda Swarupa Purve Haiya Lakshmana Laghu Bhrata Haye Kare Ramera Sevana. Lord Nityananda Swarup formerly appeared as Lakshmana and served Lord Ramchandra as his younger brother. And he says, Nishedha Karite Nare Yate Chota Bhai Maunadhari Rahe Lakshmana Mane Dukha Pai. As a younger brother, he could not stop Lord Ram from his resolution. And so he remained silent, although unhappy in his mind. Krishna avatare jeshtha haile sevara karana Krishna ke karaile nana sukha aswadana. When Lord Krishna appeared, Balram became his elder brother to serve him to his heart's content and make him enjoy all sorts of happiness. So we see that Lord Balram, Lord Nityananda, is none other than, he's just the expansion of Krishna so that Krishna can have nice pastimes with him. Then he mentions further in chapter 5, he says, Ara eka shuna tanja kripara mahima adhama jivere chade urdhva sima. So now he's saying, please listen to another glory of his mercy, his Nityanand Prabhu's mercy. He made a fallen living entity climb to the highest limit. So he goes on mentioning about how there was a very pure devotee of Nityanand Prabhu, disciple of Nityanand Prabhu, and his name was Sri Meena Ketana Ramdas. And he was a very good devotee, always absorbed in the love of Godhead. So once he had attended the Sankirtan going on day and night at Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's home because he had been invited there. And while leaving from there, uh, this Ramdas Prabhu had an argument with the brother of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And so when this argument happened, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that my brother had firm faith in Lord Chaitanya, but his faith in Lord Nityananda was very dim and very glimmery. And when he's arguing, Ramdas Prabhu felt very unhappy in his mind. And that's when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami chastises his brother. And he says, these two brothers are like one body, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. They are identical manifestations. If you do not believe in Lord Nityananda, you will fall down. If you have faith in one, but, but you disrespect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. It would be better to be an atheist by slighting both brothers than a hypocrite by believing in one and slighting the other. And so after this chastisement, Sri Ramadas Prabhu, he broke his flute in anger and he went away. And at that moment, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that my brother fell down. So losing faith in Lord Nityananda or disrespecting Lord Nityananda is such a big offense. So he disrespected a servant of Lord Nityananda and he fell down. Going further, this chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions that that night, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream. And he says, it's only because of my one quality that I chastised my brother for disrespecting a Vaishnava. And when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami saw Nityanand Prabhu in his dreams, he fell at his feet, offered his obeisances, and then Lord Nityananda placed his own feet upon Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's head. And he says, arise, get up, get up, get up. And the moment he sees and wakes up and he sees Nityanand Prabhu, he starts glorifying again. This point is coming again, glorifying the Lord, glorifying the Lord. I remember when I was in my initial years, I mean, I'm still in initial years of my bhakti, but when we joined long back, we were told how to pray to the Lord. A first step of starting prayers to the Lord is starting glorification of the Lord. That's what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying. He's mentioning in this chapter that Nityanand Prabhu had a glossy blackish complexion, and his tall, strong, heroic stature made him seem like Cupid himself. He had beautifully formed arms, hands, legs, and eyes like lotus flowers. He wore a silk cloth with a silk turban on his head. He wore golden earrings on his ears and golden armlets and bangles. He wore tinkling bell anklets on his feet and a garland of flowers around his neck. His body was anointed with sandalwood pulp and he was nicely decorated with tilak. His movements surpassed those of a maddened elephant. So he goes on glorify, he says, his face was more beautiful than millions of moons. He chanted Krishna, Krishna in deep voice. He was so absorbed in ecstasy. And then he says he was, surrounded by his entourage, his servants, associates. Some of them were playing horns, flutes, others were dancing, some were offering chamar fans to him. So when he saw this opulence of Lord Nityananda, he was completely ecstatic. He was overwhelmed with ecstasy, not knowing anything else. And that Lord Nityananda smiled and spoke to him. He said, "Oh, my dear Krishnadas, do not be afraid. Go to Vrindavan, for there you will attain all the things. Attain all the things." That's important. And after saying this, he directed me towards Vrindavan by waving his hand. Then he disappeared with his associates. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami fainted and fell to the ground. His dream had broken, and when he regained consciousness, he said that he says that morning sun had already risen. He thought over it and then he concluded that Lord has ordered me to proceed to Vrindavan at once. And that very second, it is mentioned that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was very, very old at that time. But he started for Vrindavan, and by his mercy, he reached there in great happiness. And then in the chapter further, we'll know how he got to write Chaitanya Charitamrita in later chapters. But the humility of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is exemplary. That he's saying that I have no quality. I have only this quality, that I chastise my brother for disrespecting a Vaishnava or disrespecting Lord Nityananda himself. That is what got me the benediction of having Nityanand Prabhu's dream and his instruction. So he starts glorifying Lord Nityananda again. He says, by his mercy only I've attained the shelter in the transcendental abode of Vrindavan. And then when he goes to Vrindavan, he gets to meet Raghunath Das Goswami, and then he takes the permission from Madan Mohan deities, and it's a beautiful pastime where he goes to take permission, and deity's garland falls on his neck. So he starts glorification, by Nityanand Prabhu's mercy, I have got the shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami, and by whose mercy I have attained Sri Radha Govinda. He glorifies his Shiksha Guru. And then he starts mentioning how he is more fallen and sinful than Jagai Madai. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who has got Lord Nityananda in his dream, if I was in his place, I'll be in, seven skies. What is it? Seven skies. That wow, I'm so pure that Lord has given me his darshan in my dreams. But look at the humility of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He says, I'm more fallen and sinful than Jagai and Madai. I'm even lower than the worm in the stool. That is how he concludes the chapter. At the end, he says again, I glorify Madan Gopal deity, I glorify the Govinda deity, because of whom I have attained my Sambandha Gyan, I have attained my Abhideya Gyan and Prayojana. Because of their mercy, I am nothing. Thinking of this, I was just remembering, many times it happens to me also that we feel a more connection to Krishna than God Nitai. But seeing this, if we contemplate, I was just thinking on that if we contemplate, Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. He said a generic instruction, okay, always think of me, always remember me, offer a homage to me, worship me. So many times. But how to exactly do it? I mean, this is a very broad term, worship me and pay homage to me, think of me all the time. It's a very broad term. The basic principle is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. But it's because of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda that we actually know how to do it. The dealings that we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita between devotees, how they are so loving and affectionate towards each other, how they are always tushyanti cha ramanti cha, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. They're always glorifying, they're always discussing about Krishna Lila. So when we see an example right in front of us, that is when we are convinced. If we don't see an example, it'll be like a very big thing in the air, and we don't know how to reach that goal. It's a goal ultimately. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro. But how to attain that goal is what is given to us by Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And how yesterday Nandiketan Prabhu was mentioning as well that um, like for a naughty student, um, Lord Krishna will be like, I'm something Silma, maybe I'm missing some things. But the idea was that Lord Nityananda is so merciful. If we compare the situation to a person giving the exams, writing exams in the school, and Lord Krishna will be like, you come and give the exam at the school, premises, you give the exam. But Lord Chaitanya will be like, it's okay. Um, um, so Lord Chaitanya will be like, you come and give the exam. It's okay. You don't give the exam. That's fine. You just come, give the attendance. That's fine too. But Lord Nityananda is so merciful. He'll say, you don't need to come also. I'll come with the question paper to your home. I mean, he's so merciful. We have seen in the case of Jagai Madai that even after being hit by Madai, he was still trying to convince Lord Chaitanya to have mercy on them. I remember when I was going through a health crisis, and um, during that time, so I remember when I was going through a health crisis, and during that time, um, I remember there was a big surgery, and few days later the surgery, when I was coming back to my senses, the first thing I could hear, I can still remember those memories. The first thing that I heard was um, Harinam going on the streets, and I could hear very clearly holy name, and that's how I can connect to Lord Nityanand mercy. That getting Krishna in our dreams is a next to impossible task for me, at least for a person the level that I am. But when we are interacting with devotees, when we are engaging in devotional activities day in and day out, or we are trying at least our best. And like yesterday, we had a Saturday Kirtan. When we are engaging in activities like this, um, I've heard long back that at the end moment of life, there is a a film of what do you say? A film of screenshots, a slideshow of screenshots that goes through your eyes, in front of your eyes. And if it happens to be a devotional screenshot, say for example, you're offering a arti or you're offering a flower abhishek, you are offering flowers, or having smelling the fragrance of the flowers, or if you're singing for the Lord, you're chanting the holy name of the Lord. So many devotees. Prabhupada has given us so many variety of activities to be Krishna conscious. I mean, that's what I come back to. Krishna conscious. Krishna says, "Man mana bhav mad bhakta," but how to do it? Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda have given us the correct process. And so, so coming back, I was saying about the incident that happened with me during the crucial stages. I was mentioning that all I could hear, though my eyes weren't closed or whatever, but I was in not a, um a fully awake state of consciousness. But only thing that I could hear was the holy name. So this is the mercy of Lord Nityananda. That's what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is mentioning here. That Lord Nityananda is so merciful that I am what I am. I am even lower than the worm in the stool, and he's merciful to even those souls. So this is an amazing pastime, very sweet pastime. But this was a life-changing event for Vrindavan, for Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Considering the humility that he is, he never mentions in Chaitanya Charitamrita what is his background, what is his parents, family, background, nothing he says. Such a humility. I mean, if I would write a book, I would be glorifying me for the first few chapters. though there's nothing to glorify, but I just simply will add on to things that I don't even possess. But look at the um, humility of Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. He starts and ends with the glorification. He starts with the glorification of God Nitai, and he ends with the glorification of Krishna. He ends with the glorification of spiritual masters, his Shiksha Guru. So this is about the chapter from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 5. And today also happens to be Srila Ramanujacharya's disappearance day as well. So I thought we will quickly talk about his glories as well. So, so Ramanujacharya was a great, great acharya. As the name says, he's an acharya. And we know that there are four bona fide sampradayas in Vaishnav sampradayas. So the Lord Narayan gave this knowledge of devotion to four people. One was Rudra, then four Kumaras, Brahmaji, and Lakshmi Devi. And so they became different sampradayas: Rudra Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya, and Sri Sampradaya. And then the Rudra Sampradaya main acharya was Sri Vishnu Swami. Then in the Kumar Sampradaya, Nimbar Kacharya. In Brahma Sampradaya, we have the Shri Madhavacharya. So we come in the lineage of Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. And then in the Sri Sampradaya, Sri Yamunacharya was the chief, and he has his headquarters in Sri Rangam. So the birth story of Ramanujacharya is also very interesting. It is mentioned that Yamunacharya, Srila Yamunacharya, who is the head of, the leading acharya of Sri Sampradaya, he had a disciple called Shailapurna. And Shailapurna, he was a very devoted, since he was the disciple of, very favorite disciple of Yamunacharya, he was very devoted. So he had two sisters, their names were Deeptimati and Kantimati. And he decided he wanted to dedicate his life to the service of his guru. So the moment his sisters were perfectly aged for marriage, he got them married. So Kantimati, one of the sisters, was married to a great Brahmana named Asuri Keshavacharya. And he was very expert at performing yajnas. So they got happily married. They were both happy, doing well, but they had, Kantimati especially had one anxiety because she didn't have a son. So Kantimati and her husband, Ashuri Keshavacharya, went to the temple of Parthasarthi, also known as Brindaranya, and performed a yagna for the pleasure of Lord Parthasarthi to get a son. And that night of the yagna, Lord appeared to him, to the husband, Asuri Kesavacharya, in a dream and told him that you and your wife should return to your native place and an incarnation of myself will be born to you. So with great happiness and confidence, they went back home. And in few months, Kantimati delivered a son. And same time, her sister, Diptimati, also gave birth to a son. So hearing this jubilant news, Shailapurna, coming back to Shailapurna, was the disciple of Sri Yamunacharya. So Shailapurna, he comes to bless the two nephews. And when he saw the son of Kantimati, he realized that the prophecy given by the great Alvar, Namma Alvar, has been fulfilled. What was his prophecy? His prophecy was that Lakshman, the brother of Ram, would take birth as a great acharya to deliver all the people. Lakshman, the brother of Ram. That's how Ramanuj was named Ram Anuj, younger brother of Lord Ram. And he named Diptimati's son as Govinda. So both parents were very great devotees. They did all samskaras and the children were growing up very nicely. And it mentioned that Ramanuja was such a ocean of good qualities. He was very obedient, very humble, very submissive, very learned, and always anxious to hear and learn more and more about the Lord. So, so later on in life, around 15, 16, he got married and then he moved to Kanchipuram. And while in Kanchipuram, there was while in Kanchipuram, there was this one devotee whose name was Kanchi Purna. So the place is Kanchi Purnam, and he made friends with Kanchi Purna. He was a Shudra by caste, but very sincere devotee of the Lord, and he was an expert at deity worship. So Ramanujacharya in his early years got very good association, got very good friendship from Kanchi Purna, and he was very happy with his friendship. They would meet often. Then, while in Kanchipuram, Ramanuja, as he mentioned, that Ramanuja is always very curious and curious to know about the devotion, about the science of Krishna, as they say. So he was sent to a Gurukul. The famous Gurukul that was available in that area was by the famous Acharya Yadav Prakash. So the Acharya's name is Yadav Prakash. And Yadav Prakash was a follower of Shankaracharya. And he was a staunch Mayavadi. At the same time, he was very learned also in Shastras. So here we see a contrasting difference between Mayavads and Bhaktas. You know, approached Yadav Prakash, and he was so intelligent. Whatever he would hear, he would immediately learn and understand and grasp. But whenever he would hear the Mayavad conclusions of his teacher, it would just cause too much pain to his heart. Like this example is given that one day um, Ramanujacharya's guru, Yadav Prakash, asked him to stay back to massage his legs, as Ramanuj was his favorite student because of his being obedient and humble and always being anxious to hear. Another quality of a great disciple is always anxious to hear. So one student of Yadav Prakash comes back and he says, he asks the teacher a question that you mentioned you mentioned one shloka from Chandogya Upanishad, and that is where it is described that lotus eyes of Lord Narayan, they are beautiful reddish color. Can you explain in more detail? Now, lotus eyes of Lord Narayan. So we are talking about a personal form of the Lord here, but we know Mayavads don't believe in the personal form of the Lord. So Yadav Prakash gave his interpretation as per Shankaracharya's teachings, and he says the eyes of Narayan are beautiful reddish color like the rear end of a monkey. He says the eyes of Narayan are beautiful reddish color like the rear end of a monkey. And listening to this, Ramanujacharya was bursting with anger and sorrow. His tears were hot and they started falling on the body of his guru. He just could not control his tears. His guru felt those burning hot tears and he looked up and saw Ramanuj in great distress crying. So Guru Yadav Prakash says, "Why are you crying, Ramanuj?" Ramanuj says, "Because I cannot tolerate hearing this blasphemy of the Lord." Yadav Prakash says, "What do you mean?" So Ramanujacharya says, "How could you compare lotus eyes of Lord Narayan to the rear end of a monkey?" So Yadav Prakash says, "This is what I heard from Shankaracharya. I'm just repeating. Can you think of something better?" Then Ramanujacharya very, very expertly and poetically explained the same Sanskrit verse to explain the real meaning. Real meaning is that his eyes are red like the red lotus that is in the presence of a shining sun. Yadav Prakash, such a beautiful description, right? But Yadav Prakash became very angry. His ego, he said, "You think you know better than our Acharya Shankar? You think you know better than your own guru?" And that is when the tension started between both of them. He was a great scholar, very good at his teachings, but Yadav Prakash could not tolerate that. So again, similar things happen in future. Once Yadav Prakash was giving a lecture And he's explaining how the form of the Lord is illusion. He's saying form of the Lord is illusion. So Ramanuj stood up and he gave a counter explanation which completely defeated the Guru's argument, and Guru became very angry. So he chastised him, why do you even want to come here to learn from me? You are very impudent. You think you can challenge a spiritual master? So Yadav Prakash became very worried because he was like, my position is at stake if this boy keeps blaspheming like that the teachings of Shankaracharya. So he discussed with his friend, with his more disciples in a secret meeting, and they decided to kill the boy. And they made a plan, they made a plan that they will, he will take all the disciples to a tour in the, pilgrimage to the Ganges in northern India. And since the only means of transport that time was walking, so walking there will take so much time from, from the south of India to the Ganges in the north. So he decided with his disciples that he will plan to kill him there. And when they come back, they'll say, he died and something happened. And no one will question us because we'll say he fell ill or things like that. He'll just make it up. So they planned the trip. And coming back to the story, when both the sisters had two sons, one was Ramanuj and another was Govinda. So Govinda, his cousin, Ramanuj's cousin, also joined the trip. And so finally, when they are at a place near Ganges, Yadav Prakash sent Ramanuj to get some flowers, some fruits for the worship. And when he was away, they were planning, Gurudev and his disciples. Yadav Prakash were planning with his disciples. And he said, this is a proper time. We should kill him in the forest. No one will ever know. But Govinda heard these plans and he ran and told Ramanuj about their plan. And he advised him to run to Kanchipuram. So Ramanuj, hearing this, obviously, he tried to run away into the forest further, but forest he got lost, obviously, and he was scared. He was not a big boy that time, and so maybe 18, 19 like that. So then he initially was scared. Then he started remembering Lord and prayed, I'm taking shelter of your Lord. Why should I be afraid of anything? You are feared by fear personified, it is said. So so soon while walking, he met a hunter couple, and that hunter couple mysteriously led him to the town of Kanchipuram and then disappeared. So Ramanujacharya stood up for the prestige, for the glory of the Lord. And now when he is in danger, when he could be dead or lost, that's when Lord manifests in the form of the hunter couple, Lord Narayan and Lakshmi Devi. And they mysteriously led him to the town of Kanchipuram and then disappeared. Ramanuja realized after they disappeared that Lord himself, listening to his prayers, came with Lourdes Lakshmi to bless him. So this is the glorification of Ramanujacharya, how his birth was glorious, how his activities were glorious, and how he went on to become a great acharya in the Sri Sampradaya. So to summarize, today we started with reading about Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 5, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is, with his utter humility, he's mentioning that how fallen I am, but despite being that, just for the one quality that he chastised his brother for not respecting Nityanand Prabhu, he got Nityanand Prabhu in his dreams and got direct instruction from him to travel to Vrindavan. And that's where he attained the perfection of his life. He got to meet his guru, Sri Rupa Goswami. And then he got to associate with Raghunath Das Goswami, who actually shared him what to write, and he got to take darshan Madan, blessings from Madan Mohan deities. So his life changed past that past that accidental happening that happened in his life. And then we also talked about Ramanujacharya disappearance day, since it's today, and we talked about how Ramanujacharya is a great acharya in the lineage of Sri Sampradaya, and how glorious he is, how knowledgeable he was, and he was such knowledgeable that even his guru got afraid of his position, of the teachings of his own guru, that he planned to kill him. But since Ramanujacharya stood up for the for the prestige of Lord, same way Lord also was there to protect him when he needed the most. So it's 9:01, and I would like to stop speaking now. And if there are any corrections, any comments, anything I can work on, I'll open the forum for any discussions. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Beautiful presentation. You very nicely brought Nityananda Prabhu as well as Ramanujacharya's pastimes. It was very nice. I don't have any questions in Facebook. I don't see it, Mataji. I have a question. Could you help me, Mataji? You have, in the beginning descriptions, you mentioned about Nityananda Prabhu's gait is like mad and elephant. Did I hear it correctly?
No, not. His.
Gait is like mad and elephant or something like that, right?
I'll say that, Prabhuji. What was that line? He was glorifying Nityanand Prabhu, Das Kaviraj Goswami, when he sees him. And that's when he says that yes, he was saying that his movements surpass those of a maddened elephant. His movements. So basically how he's walking, and that what do you say, that ecstasy that he's walking with. Basically he's I think he's exaggerating, and because he's so much in awe and what do you say, he's so much in ecstasy that he's also describing the symptoms of Lord Nityananda in ecstasy. You know, he's walking like a mad elephant, like, you know, like how a big king in front of you are, how you look at it. I think this is what I understand.
Okay. That helps, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. And devotees in Zoom, if you have any discussion point or if you have any questions or comments, please proceed.
It's mostly stories today, not much philosophy. So I don't think there'll be any questions. If there are no questions, I will beg your forgiveness if I said something wrong, and if I said something which is not appropriate. Please forgive me as your humble servant. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Her Grace Nayansundari Mataji ki jai.